Professor Mondira Dutta's teaching and research experience span over 4 decades. She has been the founder chairperson of the Center for Inter-Asian Studies, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and she was also the director of UGC Area Studies for 2 consecutive terms. She was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award at the International Congress of Women for Justice, Equality, Peace and Progress. It was sponsored jointly by United Nations Information Center for India and Bhutan in 2009. She is an ICSSR Senior Fellow at the Special Center for Disaster Research, Jawaharlal Nehru University. She was formerly associated with Dublin City University. She specializes in gender studies, disaster research, and human security in South Asia, including Afghanistan and Central Asia. She has worked as a consultant with several national and international organizations such as United Nations Human Rights Commission, the Ford Foundation, Norway, the Netherlands, the DFID, the World Bank, International Human Rights Commission Geneva, UNESCO, and the Government of India. Her latest study was with the UN Woman as consultant cum senior researcher for a study titled Socio-Economic Impact of COVID-19 Gender Perspective. This is with the collaboration with Niti Aayog, Government of India. She has also completed a book project, which is on disaster and human trafficking, role of institution and civil society organization at ICSSR Senior Fellow at the Center for Disaster Research, Jawaharlal Nehru. With this word, I would like to invite Professor Mondira Dutta, to kindly deliver that message. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rijesh. It's been a pleasure to be here, and thank you, ISID, for having given me this opportunity. I would like to share my PowerPoint, but before that, I just want to say that it is a very dull afternoon, and this is really not the right time to talk about statistics, etc. But my students always complain that, ma'am, please don't teach us quantitative tools in the afternoon, because we already are sleepy and we fall asleep. So in case you find me a little more boring or something, I can make it more active by interacting with you all. And it's a pleasure to come back to the class and teach people, although, I mean, it's very difficult, as I was telling Dr. Rijesh, that without a blackboard and a chalk and a duster and some chalk pieces to throw at students to wake them up, it's really difficult. But anyway, these are the new norms and we have to acclimatize ourselves to it. So I'll start with my presentation.
Yeah.
Tell me if you can see my...
It's visible.
You can see all of you?
Yes, right.
It's visible. Okay, fine.
You can make it full screen, F5. Press F5.
Oh,
F5.
What should I press?
F5.
F5. Just a second. F4. I didn't find F5. Ah, yes. Is it okay? No?
No. Still, it's okay, I think.
Should I approve? Dhananjay Kumar is requesting.
Accept that.
I should accept?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Open system prefer Zoom. Something else it says, would like to control this computer using accessibility features.
Yes.
No, I have to open system preferences. Is that okay?
If you click the PP slideshows, right?
Yes, it's done, ma'am.
It's done.
It's done. So are you going to control from there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
You control from here.
So I just speak, okay? You control the slides.
Not at hand.
Now, see, I actually have been involved very actively with ICSSR for various, people submitting their doctoral thesis, postdoctoral, then project reports. And the one thing that I really found total blank among the scholars was that their methodology. I think most of you, I was seeing that what a exhaustive, classification has been done by this ISID, Dr. Rijesh. I found most of you are from economics background, if I'm not mistaken. But despite that, I don't know why, when it comes to presentation in ICSSR for your doctoral, fellowship or your postdoctoral fellowship, the methodology is really weak, very, very weak. I cannot do everything in one go. You already are having so it's a very good thing that in this 10 days time, it is totally focused on research methodology. That is the main crux of the whole thing. If your methodology is not right, you just cannot go ahead. So therefore, what we felt even in ICSSR, we keep talking among the experts that there needs to be more such programs initiated for people who are coming from the remote areas or people who are just wanting to update their, methodological background, etc. So therefore, I was discussing with Professor Murthy, and I asked him whether they're okay if I take up such a topic. It's a little dry topic, but very simple topic and very, very elementary level topic. I'm not going into the hi-fi, statistical tools of multivariate analysis and principal component, etc. I'm just going to talk about how we begin research and how it is important for us to understand that there's something called biasness of scale. Some of you may already be knowing about it, and if you know, it'll be like a good brush up for you, and probably you can even help others understanding. Now, this topic that I had selected eliminating biasness of scale, but without going into the context. I have to discuss a little bit about the research types. Then I can come to the biasness of scale. So this biasness of scale, and subsequently I'll take up triangulation and other standardization processes. Now, let's go to the next slide. Next, yeah. Now here, what I plan to do is I just want to give you a background of the whole thing, what we are going to talk about. And then we basically, when we select a research topic, we just select one topic. And in the morning, you've heard Professor Amita Singh talking about interdisciplinary, how important it is, and how that's why JNU has this upper hand, because everywhere you go, any school you take admission, it is interdisciplinary. So if you have studied from JNU, you will understand that the importance. Otherwise also, many of the universities now are coming into this interdisciplinary mode. So therefore, your research topic that you select is very important, how it is related with other sister disciplines. Like economics, for example, is very, very related with geography, geography with history, history with sociology, anthropology. So entire social sciences as such, they're very related. But now we are really becoming transdisciplinary. Like I'm just continuing from where Amita has left. The transdisciplinary, you then start borrowing things from mathematics, you borrow things from statistics. So you are really going into, it's kind of a Venn diagram where you are borrowing things which you need. If I'm a geographer or I am a political scientist, I will not leave my subject. My subject is political scientist. I'm a political science. But I will definitely take the help of those aspects, those small tools and statistical, maybe mean, median, mode, whatever, small tools to utilize it for my research. So therefore, what happens is the subject experts who are very senior subject experts, they may not be well versed with the interdisciplinary mode of the present days. So they tend to look down on you that you are trying to show off, you're using statistical tools or such big jargons, matrices and multiple regression analysis. But on the other hand, you will be criticized by the statisticians as well. That, oh, what is she doing? What is he doing? The research is just basically correlation regression. That's nothing. We need to go for input output analysis. We need to go for many other hi-fi techniques. But why should we? We are our subject expert, whatever our subject is. So we will hang on to our subject. Based on a subject, we select a topic which may be interdisciplinary because we want to explain our point. So we only borrow those tools and those techniques which are important for us, which will help us in assessing, analyzing, compiling, collating, and giving you a final output of the whole study. And then you have the literature review. I'm not going into the details. You have the database, primary, secondary, whatever database. But there's one important aspect in your research, that is the biasness of scale. So this is what I'm going to focus on most of the time. Next slide, please. Okay, so research, basically we have two types of research. One is the qualitative research, and the other we call it as the quantitative research. Now, both are equally important. For example, when I was teaching in SIS, there were students who were from the Buddhist background, the lamas. And there was a common quantitative tools and techniques, research methodology course for the whole school at one point of time. So the whole school would attend that class, 70, 80 people, all M.Phil students only. So therefore, they would say that we don't need to learn about these statistical tools and techniques. Why should we do this? But what we need to do is we need to organize ourselves. We need to structure it. We need to tabulate. We need to classify. All these things are part of your quantitative tools and techniques. So therefore, I used to tell them that even if you are based on qualitative research, you need to go to the archives. You will take out the actual, the maps or the documents which you need, historical evidences. You need to classify them. How would you classify them? You can't go writing one by one each document what it has. You have to classify. How do you classify? How do you distinguish between one era to another era to another era? So therefore, this is a very important aspect of research that one must understand. Now, when we talk of qualitative analysis, qualitative is necessarily we can go through focus group discussions. We don't need to really go with a questionnaire to the field and collect information word by word from households, from age, from population, from caste, from creed. We don't need to do that. But qualitative research is more on the theoretical part. Your theory, how good you are in writing, how good you are in explaining. So that kind of qualitative research. So qualitative research, let me explain this further. Next slide, please. Yeah. So what is qualitative research? Now, the qualitative research actually investigates why and how of decision making. Besides, you have the what, where, and when. Those are also there, but those become secondary in fact when you're talking of qualitative research. Your qualitative research will question why and how. That is all. We are not interested in exact magnitude, what happened, where did it happen, when did it happen. It's not only that. So this is what is more on qualitative research. It's exploratory in nature, explanatory in nature. It is a developing area where you keep changing and keep reading and keep updating, validating or falsifying theories. Even in qualitative research, we have to do validating and falsifying theories. Sometimes we take some small sample size or focus group discussions or some observations. And on the basis of that also, we develop our hypothesis that what we are going to do. So again, here, I will not go beyond this, but this is the context, process, analytical generalizations. This is all qualitative research. So this is more focused on your skillful writing skills. If you have a good writing skills through qualitative research, you can explain your point. Now, for example, you have ethnographic studies. Now, in ethnographic studies, there was one study that I did with the Ministry of Women and Child, where the time share, how you sit from morning till evening, almost let us say 10 to 12 hours with the lady, watching her, what she is doing. So you're seeing she's doing, okay, she's looking after the child. She went to give food to the mother-in-law. She went to press the leg of the mother-in-law. She went to cook. She went to wash. She went to clean. She started feeding her, nursing her child, her baby. So, there are a variety of work that she's doing. You're trying to capture those by documenting, by writing. So when you capture those by writing, by documenting, so you are basically, what are you doing? You are trying to jot down, document what you're seeing. And then maybe when you come back to your class, you are going to classify them into time share. How much period of the time she has devoted for work? How much period of the time she has devoted for her entertainment? Maybe she watched TV for half an hour. How much time did she devote for her children, for her husband, for her home? So, that is how you divide. You're not asking her how much you're doing, but you're watching her. So this is a kind of an ethnographic study, which is also considered as qualitative research. Next slide. Yeah. Now, what happens when we talk about the quantitative research? When you talk about the quantitative research, it is the choice of population. Population here, I mean, is the sample. Necessarily, you're talking about a sample. You're talking about a small sample. I'm not going into the details of sampling either, because I have to focus on that. I'll spend more time on that towards my later 2-3 slides. So population here is how you choose your sample. That is also very important. So you choose a sample. There are various types of sampling methods, which probably you will, you know it already, or maybe one of the classes might take care of that. How you select your sample? Do you go for a small sample? Do you go for a large sample? If you go for a small sample, what is the magnitude? Is it less than, it's less than 30, of course, but how many? Is it 20? Is it 10? Because sometimes we very difficult to find the target group. So then you scale down the sample size. So that is possible. But sometimes when you're talking about mass scale, you're talking about population in as a universe, then you talk about large scale sample, which is of course more than 30, but it can go up to 100, 200. There's no hard and fixed rule as to what should be the sample size. Usually we take, depending on the study, depending on the topic, we take anywhere between 0.05 from that to 10% also. But when you collect census data, census population data, those are all 100%. Everybody is collected, everybody, door-to-door sampling is done. Now, in this quantitative research, classification here is very, very important. How do you classify? What is the rationale of your classification? Now, we call that in sampling, we call it stratified sampling. Then again, we go for random sampling. Now, that kind of things here, you have to have a rationale. Most of the time that I saw that, I'm talking from my experience in ICSSR, the people who come there for interview, they're not selecting anything. They say, okay, now a sample study will be created. Okay, what is the magnitude? I'll take 100 from this village, 100 from that village, 100 from this village. How do you do that? Why are you making it equal? What is your rationale? There is no rationale selected in selecting the sample size. That is very, very wrong. You cannot equate everything. Now you're talking about gender division. Okay, I'll take 50 men and 50 women. Why? I mean, you have to have again a rationale. Rationale is missing. Everything is missing. You've got to have a rationale that I will select on the basis of the population. If this particular district has more women, I'll select more women. I'll select less men. If that particular district has more rural areas, I will select more from rural areas and less from urban areas. So, this is the kind of rationale. You have to give a rationale, simple rationales to justify your selection, to justify your classification. So your classification must be something that you can prove, that you can say that, yeah, this is possible. This is the rationale I've selected and this justifies very well. So later on, when you deduct and when you interpret your data, you would be in a much more comfortable and in a very cushy position to defend your logic, to defend your sample. Your selection of sample is very, very important. So therefore, your data set once becomes clearly demarcated, you can go ahead and start selecting. Your questionnaire will be ready, what kind of questions you want to ask, and you collect this research. So this research, then once you have the data, you're back to your base, your classroom. Once we are back to our classroom, we have to make tables. We have to make maybe some diagrams. Maybe we cross tabulate the data to prove something, that if rainfall is high, then the agricultural production of that year goes high. How do we do it? Then we make correlation coefficient, or whatever we want to. We try to find the chi-square test or any other techniques, various techniques of statistical tools. So those things are possible provided your rationale is there, your selection of sample is perfect, your selection is also stratified based on the rationale, and your data that you've collected from the field is correct, and you brought it back to the classroom to make tables. Next slide, please. Next one, please. Yeah. Okay, so just I was talking about the sampling, little bit I gave a little bit of introduction. So I told you about the sample size. Sample size should be such that it should not be too huge, it should not be too small. You have to select a sample size which is handy, which you can figure out, which you can do it, doable, which is not very expensive, which is not very time consuming. You have just 2 years to do a PhD or a postdoc, or a project, maybe 1.5 years. So based on that, you have to be very holistic in what should be your sample size. And yet, if you take 10, for example, sample size, your magnitude is just 10. Now you're losing out on all the data. You cannot really take only 10 people, interview 10 people. So, just yesterday or today, I saw on a WhatsApp group, somebody had posted, they were trying to show the women, we had the International Women's Day yesterday, and they were showing the gap in terms of financial, financial decision making among the women. So they were saying, okay, can you cook? All the people who can cook, come forward. All the people who can't cook, go backwards. All the people who can knit and sew, come forward. Who can go back, who can't go back. And this way they were creating a gap between the men and the women. I like that WhatsApp, that post. Towards the end, the questions become tougher. They say, okay, and it was 30 participants consisting of men and women, 15 men and 15 women. And at the end, this ask, how many of you are very independent and can do your financial accounting yourself? Where to do mutual fund, where to invest, how to withdraw, where to put the money, where is it? And there we found that most of the women were going backwards. So you see, this is another technique of finding out the gap between the men and the women. That is where the women perhaps lack most. They depend on the male members or on somebody else for helping them out as far as finance is concerned. Very few women are really able to handle their finances. So therefore, you have to have some kind of sample. Now here the sample size is so small, 30. They had considered 30, which becomes itself a very small sample, of course, and it is not correct. You cannot generalize such things for everything. And I'm not going into, again, details of importance of sampling. I've told you how important it is. It is not possible for us to do everything in 2 years' time. The whole process of data collection itself should not take more than 6 months if you have a 2-year program. And then you have to study the sample. There are lots of books I have not mentioned here, but anybody who wants to can look up. Aslam Mahmood's book is there. Cole and King is there. Elhans, D.N. Elhans is there. There are many books on very well explained sampling techniques. So one can really learn from there. They're very, very simple sampling techniques. Have you heard of this exit poll? Exit polls, when you cast your vote and you come out of the booth, this journalist standing there, they ask you, whom did you give your vote to? And then they leave out 2-3 people and they ask the fourth one, then again 2-3 people left out, again they ask another one. So here what basically they're doing sampling, but this type of sampling is called a systematic sampling. Systematically you're asking the every third person, and from the exit poll, this sample, before the results come, the journalists are all ready with their data. So this is how they do it, because they have very little time. So sampling becomes very, very important. Sometimes it really comes true, whatever the exit poll has suggested, but sometimes it's also a mistake. So it depends on what kind of sampling you have taken, how well you have done your sampling. So sampling really helps you in authenticating whatever you want to speak. Next slide, please. Okay, now we come to the actual topic, to be honest. Now, what is biasness of scale? When we go to the field, we collect information from the field, whether it is ethnographic study, whether it is qualitative or quantitative, that's besides the point. Now, unknowingly, we sometimes create mistakes. sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. See, I'll give you two examples. One is we ask the person, okay, so what is your monthly earning? So he said, I don't earn much. I'm a very poor person. I earn only about 100 rupees a day. 100 rupees a day. So you say that, oh, that is, he cannot be earning only 100 rupees a day. He has 4 kids. He has a wife to feed. 100 rupees mein kya hota hai? He then nowadays, of course, it's all online. It will be difficult. But when we used to go for physical survey to the field, we would see his house. We would see, oh, he has a cooler also. Okay, everyone has a mobile. They have both the husband and wife has a mobile, and there is a fridge kept somewhere in the corner. So 100 rupees a day, we start understanding this is not possible. Let us make it 500. So instead of writing 100, they say 100 and we put it as 500. So there are two things involved when you go for sampling. One is the personal observation. I'm observing how good you are staying. What is the way you are staying? And I'm correcting your information which you are giving me. I'm correcting it. And I'm saying that instead of 100 rupees, make it 800 rupees a day or make it maybe 1000 rupees a day. And there is something else called respondent's perception. The respondent is the person who's responding to you. Respondent's perception is that she thinks or he thinks that, oh, if I say 1000, maybe tomorrow they'll go and catch me. They'll put a case somewhere in the, income tax or something, there's some raid will be conducted. Let me make it down. So, there is a clash going on between the observers, observation, the person who's interviewing, the observation, personal observation, and the respondent's perception. These are the two things that are constantly, fighting each other. What should it be? And in the bargain, we have already put some kind of biasness into our data. Maybe knowingly, maybe unknowingly, but we have put the biasness. I think that what I put was right. And she thinks what she said was right. So in between somewhere, I just put the figure and I say, okay, but I come back to my class and I get all this data from other areas also. What is the number of children you have? What are their education? Many times by mistake also, you instead of writing 10th pass, you write 10th, means 10th fail. So like that, education. So many indicators that you're collecting, that all that also there is some amount of biasness of scale which creeps in. If you ever get a chance, please read Challenge of World Poverty by Gunnar Myrdal. It's a very abridged version, small book, uh, abridged version of the 3 volumes of Asian drama. So in that you will get this biasness of scale very clearly. He's made it very clear over there. So this biasness of scale is actually, which creeps into your data, is bound to be there, whether you like it or you don't like it, whether you know it or you don't know it. So you please be prepared mentally that when you come to the classroom back with your data that you've collected, bulky amounts of questionnaire or whatever data you've collected on your dictameter or whatever that is called, that recorder, you come back and you feel so proud. I've got so much data with me. Now I'm going to start tabulating. Now, it is very important that we make this data error-free. We make it, at least reduce the error content. So the error content has to be reduced in the data. What happens when somebody is asking, okay, which book you want me? I can do it. Somebody's asking me to repeat the name of the book. Which book did you say? Acha, Poverty. Challenge of World Poverty. Challenge to World Poverty by Gunnar Myrdal. He's a very famous economist. I'm sure all the economists sitting here would know. Asian drama, this particular challenge to world poverty is also very well, the biasness of scale is very well explained. Now, here you see, so going back to this, I think I'll answer all the questions later, right? Where whatever comes in the chat, I won't answer now. So you keep writing in the chat box, I will take it up later. Now, here, therefore, it is important that we cannot proceed. We cannot proceed with our data without removing this biasness which has crept into our data. It is bound to come in and it has come in. So don't be very unhappy that, oh, my data is wrong. I've collected wrong data. It happens. It's nothing extraordinary. It happens. Now, if you're talking about qualitative research, you're talking about ethnographic study. Like I told you an example, let us do this, the timeshare of the women's work per day in 24 hours. Now, how do we do that? We are really sitting there and watching her and writing our own records. And then we come back and we try to say, okay, so many hours for this, so many hours for this. So this is her job, daily job. Now, but what happens in ethnographic study? Ethnographic study, you did it, and you or somebody else wants to do the research, or you want to do a research related with that, and you want to go back to the same circumstances, same field. Now, I have talked to a BSF officer. I work on human trafficking mostly. My area of specialization is human trafficking. Now, when I go to the BSF border, I want to talk to this BSF officer who had told me 2 years back that, so many people have migrated, not migrated, they've been trafficked from Nepal to India, from Bangladesh to India. It's mainly in the border areas that you have these BSF officers. And according to them, at least there are 5 or 6 women who are trafficked due in the whole week. Now I want to go back there and see what is the status. Now that fellow, either he's old, he's retired, or he's been posted out, or he's no longer alive. What do you do in that case? You got to triangulate your data. So what do? Your triangulation is you go to some other officers, not one, but you go to one officer. That officer says, maybe not 7 in the whole week, but I think it's at least 15. Now you're confused. So you have to go to another officer who doesn't know, they don't know each other. Another point of the Indo-Bangladesh border, another point of Indo-Nepal border. And then you ask another officer, what do you think, officer? How many people, how many women have been trafficked over the last 1 week that you've been here? He says, yeah, minimum 10. I have seen 10. Then you go for another person. At least 3 people you have to triangulate your data. You go to 3 different persons and then collect the information and check with the original data that you had. Is it somewhere similar? Then it is fine. If it is not similar, then you take an average of this picture, and that is called triangulation of data. So now your data that you've collected from the field without even seeing who was trafficked, without even going into the authentic national documentation, documentation processes that has happened, NSSO data or NHFS data or census. We're not going into all that. We don't have that kind of time. So we are doing it through this, we are just removing the biasness by triangulation, and then we validate this. We come back and then we do the various, tests of significance, etc. T-test and chi-square test, and whatever tests that are applicable. So we do that. And then we remove the biasness of scale. So this is done for ethnographic, qualitative research. Qualitative research, this is very essential. Sometimes in quantitative research also we need to do the triangulation, because the data that we collect is not always from a national documentation process. Census hardly gives us anything. The National Sample Survey Organization data is also very restricted, limited. And NHFS data is also related to certain aspects. We don't get everything. So economic census and all these data, they have their own limitations. So you got to go to the field, you got to do a primary survey, and through your primary survey, your data that you're collecting and your focused data, the focused in the sense, the topic, the title, the objectives, the research questions, all your questionnaire is focused towards that. So that data will be much more better than consulting the secondary sources of information, which have already been collected, collated, and is fed to us in a capsule. If you want to go through census, you have to go through these tables, census tables, and see, this is 2000, almost, it is 2021. I'm sure that there are many volumes which are still not out of 2011. We don't have them. We don't have so many NSSO data also. It's still being, it's a very hard task. It's not so easy to calculate the data. So it's best to go for a primary survey. Nowadays, I think the funding agencies and your research fellowships have a provision that you can go on a field visit, especially for School of International Studies. I know they do go for field visit. ICSSR also funds many students who want to go for field visits. So this is very, very important that you have to triangulate the data to make it authentic. Now, coming to the third aspect, that some indicators are positive and some are negative. I will not tell you more in this. Just remember that indicators, for example, I want to assess the health of a child. What is the level of health of the child from one who's coming from the slum areas, one who's coming from a middle class family, another one from a very higher middle class family. Now, I'm not talking about the extremely high. Just take these three categories. Now, in these three categories, you are talking about the health of a child. So what do you do? Simple things. You take the BMI, take the height of the child, take the age, take the weight of the child. Besides that, if the height is okay, there is a certain number, a certain height you have to have for your age, given the condition that your parents could be short, you have to have a certain weight, you have to have according to the age. Now you see the other things, the maybe the blood pressure, the the protein content in the child's body, the vitamins, whether they're there, the nutrition of the food that they're eating. There are so many indicators. Out of that, some of them are positive, because if the child is eating a good nutrition food, they can be positive. But if the child is not eating, is eating only aloo and rice because they are poor, they're from the jhuggi jhopdis, they cannot afford more than that. That is the mass scale food that they have. So they may be suffering from, night blindness, like deficiency of vitamin A, or maybe they're suffering from rickets and all kinds of other diseases. So these are basically related with the nutrition aspect. So if the nutrition is not right, if nutrition is wrong, then it becomes a negative indicator for you. So there are some indicators which reflect as a positive indicator. If you're talking about, for example, you're talking about giving you an example from Afghanistan, because having worked in Afghanistan also, things come quickly to my mind. Now, in Afghanistan, if you're going for some meetings or somewhere, if the women are not allowed in that meeting, that is a negative indicator that how much is the participation of the women for common meetings. They're not supposed to speak. I'm talking even in a parliament of Afghanistan. The parliamentarians, women parliamentarians have told me that they cannot speak. If they speak, everybody will boo them down. So they're just namesake there. So they cannot speak. So that kind of freedom is also a negative indicator. But that negative indicator has to be mixed with the positive indicator. Positive indicator is maybe literacy, education. The higher the education, the better it is for the development of the country. So there are lots of positive indicators, lots of negative indicators. All that put together, you have to find the final picture. How do you do it? You put the plus and the minus, it becomes zero sum game. So there is no result. So how do we, do it like positive versus negative indicator? I gave you some examples here. The mortality rates of children under 5 and the level of education among girls and women. Now you see, the mother is the most important. If the mother is educated, the child will definitely do well. So the mortality rates of children under 5 means there is no vaccination process in place. There is no nutrition in place. There is no health checkups in place, and the level of education. So this level of education is a positive indicator. But mortality rates of children under 5 is a negative indicator. Now we have to combine them. I'll come to that in my last slide. I'm just giving you some examples. Now, for example, population who do not have sanitation. Nowadays, because of COVID, you take up any secondary sources of information. Yesterday only I gave a lecture on this to Jamia. And there, I was showing them that how the NSSO data has shown us that there are hardly many households who have sanitation. They are, have common toilet and it's filthy and dirty, not kept properly. So what kind of sanitation do you have? You don't have proper water supply. You cannot do social distancing because your room is one. Everybody has to stay there. The father, the mother, the 4 kids, the father's mother, maybe father's father also, maybe a father's sister also. They're all together. If somebody is suffering from COVID, it's just too bad. You have to stay there. All of you have to stay there. So this is the kind of limitations we have. So when you're talking about a health of a region, there are bound to be some positive indicators and there are bound to be some negative indicators. So how do we find the sum total of this? Okay, so next slide. Yeah. Now I come to the most important slide. How do we remove? So this biasness of scale, one is the biasness of scale that I told you, it creeps in. Another is the, the positive and negative indicator. So how do we find this composite picture? The last line that I wrote, the composite index, how do we reach there? Only when you reach to a composite picture, then only you can compare one region with another. You can compare America also with India, but you have to have a composite picture, your composite picture, the Human Development Index reports. You can compare that because they are absolutely, they are comparable. So standardization is a process used for, one of the process used for cleaning your data, for reaching a data to that level where you can add them up. For example, supposing you have the standardized values, they're useful for tracking data that it isn't easy to compare. Yeah, this is the main thing. The standardization is basically for making it compare. You're bringing the data into a consistent uniformity, into a certain level of harmonizing the data so that you are all, each indicator is compared to the other. You can compare them. That is called standardization. And there is another word called normalization. When normalization is that you are making all the data unit free and scale free. That is your supposing there is you're calculating the environmental pollution of a particular place. Now there you're talking about tons of sulfur dioxide emitted per year. Now that is in tons. You're talking about annual environmental health expenditure, which is in US dollars. How much health expenditure do we have? Environmental health expenditure. The burning of the paralis and all those things, all these expenditures, it's in US dollars. Then you have tons of fertilizer nutrients for agricultural land. Per 10 square kilometers of agricultural land, what is the how much ton of fertilizers are you investing there? Then you have liters of water consumed. That is how much water per capita, per head, per day. How much water do you need? Then proportion of people living in areas with air quality within acceptable standards, AQI. Then number of square meters of living space per inhabitant, that is the density of population. Now I'm talking about different types of indicators. You see, something is in tons, something is in dollars, something is in numbers, something is in liters. We can't add them up. It is not possible to add that up and we say, okay, this is the environmental picture we have. We have to come to a common point, which is the composite index. Now, for that, we therefore have to go through the processes of standardization and normalization. They are considered, we usually put a slash and we say standardization and normalization. After you've done it, I'll tell you the method, how we do it. After you've done it, then you can say that your data is scale free and unit free. You cannot call it tons, you cannot call it percentage, you cannot call it anything. They're just data in numbers. So in numbers or in points, decimals. So you can compare one decimal with another. That is comparable. But only after you have removed the biasness of scale and made the data standardized and normalized. Now, how do we do it? I don't have a blackboard, but visualize that you have a set of data. You have a series of data. Just take a small example. For example, we take the average, let us say, average age of a particular district. What is the average age? India's average age, we say that the youngsters are doing well, and we have a lot of young population coming up. I think maybe 28 or 30 is the average that age of the Indian population that has been predicted over the next 5-10 years. So here what I'm saying is that you want to have the average age, then what you do, you say that, okay, in this particular district, average age is so much, this particular district average age is so much, and you have this whole series of districts of all the districts of country with the average age. You find the mean of it. All of you know how to find the mean. I'm not explaining that. So you have the average. Find out the average of the entire country. When you take the observation, take the first district. First district has an average age of, let us say, 60, for example. Take 60 divided by its mean. You get a figure. You're dividing it by mean. That means you're reducing the scale. When you divide, it becomes less. So you take every independent observations district-wise and you divide it by the whole India's average mean that you have calculated. So you get this figure. Now this is standardized. This itself is standardized now. Each indicator you do like that. And then at the end of it, you add every standardized data that you have got, and that becomes your standardized normalized data. But I told you, if you remember, there are some indicators which are positive and some indicators which are negative. So what do you do when you know that your indicator is a positive indicator? Okay, then you divide by mean. But if your indicator is a negative indicator, for example, I gave you the mortality rate of under 5. That's a negative indicator. The higher it is, the worse it is. The lower it is, the better it is. It's the negative indicator. So in that case, what do? You take the mean divided by the observation, divided by the district's average. Do you follow what I'm saying? You take the whole India mean. The mean has to be divided by each one of those observations. That will become standardized and normalized, and there will be no negative, no positive. At the end of it, when you add this picture, the composite picture, you add up, maybe you have 7 indicators. So all 7 indicators, out of that 2 are negative, 5 are positive. So you have now converted all of them at the same standardized level. And now you add them up, you get a composite picture. And you can categorize these composite picture into different groups and say, okay, this is the lot which is the best one. This is the lot second best, the third best, and this is the least. So this is called the entire composite picture. I do not want to go more, but I would expect more questions. I know there will be a lot of questions, but please just tell me if you want me to repeat anything at this point of time. Anybody who wants me to repeat? Any portion you want me to repeat? Yes or no? You have to unmute yourselves. I can't hear anything. Please unmute yourselves. Okay? Okay. Rajesh?
Okay.
Is it clear what I'm saying, what I'm speaking?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes. Good.
Okay, ma'am, clear.
Yeah. So this is what I'm trying to say. Just keep yourself unmuted because I like to interact. Otherwise.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So
Sure.
I'm saying your composite picture, unless you have a composite picture, your analysis is not complete. You cannot say that district A has this negative indicator is high and the positive indicator is lower. You can't compare like that. You have to come to a common format to compare elephants with buffaloes, with tons, with liters. You know, the unit is totally different for different indicators. So we have to make them all scale free and unit free. And that process is known as standardization and normalization. And that is the process known for eliminating the biasness of scale. So this elimination, in fact, Amitav Kundu's book is there. Methods of Regionalization or something. I'm forgetting the name of the book. Even he has explained very well in that how you remove the biasness of scale. So when you're applying a model, for example, anybody who is familiar with linear programming, there's a model called optimization model. When you apply that model to your study, you will have lots of things which you need, which has to be standardized, which has to be normalized. That data that you get is called scale-free data, removing the biasness of scale. So without removing that aspect, your analysis is useless. You cannot do analysis without removing this biasness of scale. And what happens in the biasness of scale, when you divide, when you divide something, it is obviously that the scale is reduced. So when the scale is reduced, the error is reduced. You see, if you put a spoonful of sugar in your water and you boil it, and it becomes less, the sugar content becomes more. If you mix more water, it becomes much more diluted. So it's the opposite side here. Here, if you reduce it, your error also reduces along with the main figures. So error reduces, your data becomes much more standardized. And of course, your scale-free unit will also take place when you divide it by mean, or if you take the negative indicators, then mean divided by the observation. That is very, very important. I don't want to go further. I will like to have some questions. And there are some chat. I'm not very familiar. Somebody, Rajesh, if you can read through, if there is any question, I can answer those. I leave this last 30 minutes for question answers. For any other doubt topic you want me to repeat or
question, triangulation fits for secondary data.
Yeah, what?
Whether triangulation fits for secondary data or not.
Triangulation fixed?
Triangulation is applicable for secondary data or
Yeah, of course. Triangulation validation of data is very, very applicable both for qualitative and quantitative research, both. Because in quantitative, you want to sometimes go back to the field. Supposing you've collected the information, quantitative information or qualitative information, and you've come back to the field. And while analyzing, you find it's very funny. I mean, Rajasthan, Thar desert receiving so much rainfall, and something is wrong with it. Your own subject expertise will tell you that there's something wrong in this analysis. So you want to go back and you want to find out whether what you collected from the field is correct or not. So you want to go back. Now you can't go back to the villages and start calculating again, collecting information. You go back to one or two people there who are important, who live there or who are staying there for the last 20 years. You go there and talk to them. That's it. You get your data authenticated. That's also triangulation. So both for qualitative as well as for quantitative, you can do triangulation of data. It's a very important tool, by the way, nowadays. Clear?
Ma'am, can you just elaborate again about positive and negative indicators,
Okay.
if you could?
Can we go back to that slide, Rajesh?
Yes, sir. 1 second.
I don't remember which number, where I gave some examples of the indicators, last third slide. I think 6th, no, maybe 5th one. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Positive and negative indicators.
Yeah.
Is it visible?
No, I can't see it.
1 second. We are sharing it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Just wait. Over here. Yeah. So this is Vanita, right? Vanita is asking. Now, Vanita, this is, you just go through this small example that I gave you. Mortality rates of children under 5. What is the death rate of children who are dying before they reach 5? Now, you just think yourself from your common sense. If the more the children die, is it better? No. You unmute yourself.
Yeah, no.
So, no. So that means it's a negative indicator. You see, it goes the opposite side. Negative correlation, just like negative correlation. If one is increasing, other decreases. They move in the opposite direction. So here you're talking about mortality rates of children under 5. They're just 5 years old and they're dying. So either the health facility is not good, or the vaccination is not good, or the nutrition is not good, or the care is not good. Something wrong. So therefore, it's a negative indicator. So here in this case, when you get the data of mortality rates for children under 5 in a particular state, district-wise, or in a particular district, village-wise, whatever, you have to find the average. And here it is a negative indicator. So the average has to be divided by each independent observation. That is, supposing you're talking about district-wise data of Uttar Pradesh. Then Uttar Pradesh average mortality rates you find, you divide that average by maybe Balrampur, then Lucknow, then Kanpur, then you go, district-wise, and you divide. Now your data is ready to be engulfed into the composite picture. So that you have already made it standardized. They're normalized and standardized, and they're called skill-free. So similarly, level of education among girls and women. Higher the literacy, the higher the level of education. This is our subject knowledge. It tells us that, okay, this is very clear that the higher the education, it is a positive indicator. Both moving in the same direction. Right? Higher this, the higher that. The lower this, the lower that. So this is a same direction, same positive. It's a positive indicator. So in this case, you will divide the actual data by the mean. In that case, it was mean by observation, but here it is actual data by the mean. So here then only you can get the standardized form, right? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Ma'am, I'm Dilip Kumar Muduri from University of Hyderabad.
Yeah.
Actually, my friend is working on the impact of climate vulnerability on sustainable livelihood in Balangir district of Odisha.
Okay.
And he has taken some indicators like social capital, human capital, natural capital, physical capital, and financial capital. And these indicators are from different scales, because among the financial capital, such as wage rate, savings, access to credit, these are all numerical. But when it is come to natural capital, it is access to natural resources like water resources, forest. So there are a different scale, different units. So how can these different indicators? He has collected data from 2 villages of Balangir district.
See, actually, you are talking about too many things. I don't know what your objective was. What was your research questions like? You have to be very focused. If your beginning is wrong, everything, you'll get confused. You have taken social capital, human capital. Don't take arbitrary. I told you there is something called
sustainable, under sustainable livelihood, you have to fulfill this all
No, you don't have to fulfill all. You just forget about our sustainable development, the 17 goals. Please, we cannot work like that. Your time period is important. You have a time period of 2 years or maybe 1.5 years.
Ma'am, according to literature, when you are examining the impact of climate vulnerability on sustainable livelihood, the sustainable livelihood, under the sustainable livelihood, all these variables are coming.
I agree. If you see the literature, just allow me to finish. If you see the literature, there are plenty of literature which will give you that you must take this, you must take this, you must take that. But is it doable for you? I'm from Odisha myself. And if you're talking about Odisha situation, there are certain areas, the KBK area, for example. Now that area is very, very remote, very, very, underdeveloped compared to the rest of Odisha. Now there, everything is important, but it is not physically possible. We don't have that kind of money, that kind of time, that kind of energy to do a research where you will study the entire, impact of climate change on the sustainable development.
But he has already collected data.
He has
And
collected data. I don't know what kind of data he has collected. I can
he has
only
col- he
say,
has taken only 2 villages. He has taken 150 families. That means 150 respondents.
now again, see, I don't want to argue there because that is his research between him and his supervisor. I'm just here to explain some of the techniques. All I can say is I do not know what the rationale was for taking those 2 villages. What was the rationale for selecting 150? Why not 130? Why not 160? What was the rationale of this, stratification of these? Uh,
No, I want to only
what do you
ask
want to ask? You
how
ask me the question. I don't still haven't followed what you want to ask.
how
You tell
to
me the question.
how to combine all the indicators and how to
Yes, you see,
standardize all.
some of them are numericals, some of them are not
Yeah,
numericals. This is your
yeah,
question. Now,
yeah,
when there is no numerical, it's just on observation, then you
yeah,
have to give a weightage. There are weights assigned. You can give one
yeah,
for positive, something good you have found. You can give
yeah.
zero for something negative you have found. You haven't found anything. So one and zero binary system, you can adopt that and you can give some weights. So that is what I did for my PhD. I have done this exactly the same thing. Now you have to assign, for example, I'm measuring the level of tourist attraction in a place. Now, tourist attraction is, I'm saying, okay, what are the tourist attractions? Flow of water is yes, tourists get attracted. Mountains, yes. Greenery, yes. Forests, yes. So, all kinds of indicators you have to select out of that non numerical indicator that you have. I don't know what exactly he has collected. And each indicator he has to give a 101001, some kind of assignment, some value he has to assign, and then that would be considered as is data. That is what you have to convert it. You have to give it a value. All I can say is that much. I do not know the rest of the things. His entire study, I won't be able to throw light on that unless I go through it.
Thank you.
Ma'am, it's the biasness of scale. So it is applicable to all kind of scales like nominal, ordinal, and ratio.
Yeah, absolutely. Ratio itself is already standardized, The
Mhm.
ratio itself is a standardized kind of processed. You can compare ratios. You don't have to do it. It is only when things are, some scale somewhere, some scale somewhere else, and you have to have a final composite picture of the levels of development of the country, or you are calculating the human development index. Then you have to make them come in a common format. And that common format, the process is standardization, normalization, and the end product is referred to as scale-free indicators.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, actually, if we are using mixed methods, no, qualitative and quantitative, and we are using doing a survey. So when we fix the sample size, on what direction, quantitatives would be more in depth, right? So there would be
No,
supposedly less number of sample size.
no, it's
And
not like that. If you're using, first you have to give me the rationale. What is a topic like? Then I can get some idea what is your mixed method.
mine is climate change and regional farming systems.
Yeah.
So,
Climate
I
change
mean,
and regional farming system, what kind of qualitative research, or what exactly are you doing? What kind of research you're doing? You're doing
um,
some amount of quantitative?
and so I'm looking at adaptation choices and perception from a quantitative perspective,
Okay.
and I'm looking at different stakeholders' participation and other aspects from a qualitative perspective.
So that is the different aspect. That's your focus group discussion. Like, the project that I just finished with you and women on COVID, impact of COVID on the socioeconomic impact.
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly, there we did the same thing. We had a quantitative segment. Now, there's no hard and fast rule that your quantitative should be more and your qualitative should be more, or this should be less and that should be more. It's nothing like that. You have to see, your main thing is that who are the participants? Whom are you going to interview? The more, the better. In a focus group discussion, for example, you can take, if it is a 5 districts or maybe 2 districts, whatever. Then you select some important stakeholders and you say one focus group discussion could be with this stakeholder, another one can be with this stakeholder. There is no rule that you have to take 5 or 6 or 10, but every focus group discussion need to be at least 9 or 10 people present. That is there. And then when you come to the quantitative part, then of course you're talking about that area where the impact has been. You're talking of some area which you're doing under your study. So you take that area and you see where exactly the production has gone up, what has the production gone down. You have to first identify through your secondary sources of information, literature review, and talking to people, that what has happened over the last 10, 20 years, maybe 30 years. And then only you select those areas where it used to flourish earlier, maybe the agricultural farming, but now it has gone down. What could be the reasons? Then you zero in those areas. So this is the rationale that you have to select. You can't just go arbitrarily into the whole area and select 10 from this block, 10 from that block, 10. No. Somewhere you can take 2, somewhere you can take 10, somewhere you can take more. So it depends on your study area, and it depends on your literature review that you've done to see what was the situation, historical evidences say, what was the situation earlier and where has it actually been affected. Is it due to climate or is it because of something else? That you can conclude later after your study is over. But right now, you will focus on those areas where the impact has been felt. Reason we don't know. We're just testing and trying. Right. So there's no hard and fast rule that your sample size should be very large or very small, but you have to take a sample where it is doable. You have to handle it. You can't take 2,000. Now for UN study we took 2,000, but we had 28 research assistants with us. You are alone. Nobody's helping you out. So you think all that and then you select your sample. Even I keep telling these people who ever apply in ICSSR, I keep telling them that don't take more than maybe 100, maybe 150. It's good enough, provided you are really doing it with a rationale and selecting the right group at the right place. Your target group and the target area, that you have to learn from your literature review. That the data will not tell you. Data comes later. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question? Anybody else?
Ma'am, can you tell me the names of few books that can help with research methodology for beginners?
Oh, one simple, I think tomorrow perhaps you will be listening to Professor Surya Narayan. He'll be talking about descriptive statistics, right? I think he's there tomorrow. He's very good in that. He will tell you, but what we grew up as, we studied. I had statistics in my graduation, of course, but we used to study D and L-Hans, which was very good, but maybe people who are not from statistical background may find it a little tough. So best book that we used to refer in social sciences is Aslam Mahmood. Aslam Mahmood's Statistical Methods in Geography, but it really had all the methods, all the things. And another one book we read in during my MA days in JNU was Socio-Economic Models in Geography by Corley and Heggett. That book is ideal to understand application of any model. It is applicable for economics, it is applicable for sociology, for geography, but it's a very good book if you can have that. Corley, C-H-O-R-L-E-Y, Corley and Heggett, H-A-G-E-T-T, or G-G-E-T, Heggett. P. Heggett, I think. So socioeconomic models, that gives you, you want to apply some kind of model to your study, then you have to go through this. Even your Rostov's stages of growth, Rostov's economic stages of growth, that is also a model which sometimes you apply for your study. And I gave you this Asian drama, not Asian drama, sorry, the abridged version, Challenge to World Poverty by Gunnar Myrdal, M-Y-R-D-A-L. The man who discovered about the vicious circle and cumulative causation theory in economics. So these are some of the books, and I think I did mention something more while speaking. I'm forgetting now. But I think this is all. And you can go through Amitav Kundu, of course, Methods of Regionalization. There's one book or article somewhere, Methods of Regionalization by Amitav Kundu. where he talks about standardization and all this biasness of scale very well. It has been explained. And I think that's all. I always ask my students, don't read too much on statistical books, because they'll change your subject. If you're a political scientist, they'll make you a statistician. We don't want to be statisticians. We want to remain what we are, but we want to borrow something. So that's why always go for a lower edged. Don't go for DNA Lance. DNA Lance is very, very statistical. Cole and King is another good book for statistical tools. But Aslam Mahmood, I would recommend any day. I have taught to my special center for disaster research, and we all bought a book, 140 or 150 rupees. It's a very good book, very easy to understand. So, but it does not talk about the biasness of scale. That it doesn't. That Kundu's book, Kundu's article, Methods of Regionalization, will do. So they have been my teachers. So obviously, I think they were great. So
Hello, ma'am.
this is, yeah. Any question?
Yeah, this is Sabrishakti from Gandhigram, Tamil Nadu, ma'am.
Okay.
So I have some two clarifications, ma'am.
Yeah.
The first one is, can we take the sample size using percentage, like 4%, 5%? Then second one is, my study is actually an impact analysis on farmers, about a concept called the farmer producer companies. So I know the population size of experimental group, but the actual population size of control group is I did not identify, ma'am, because the sample data diverse in
You're from which
regions.
background? What subject?
So is there any?
What is your subject? Economics?
From economics.
Huh?
Economics, yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay. See, so
Yes,
first,
ma'am, economics.
yeah. First question I'll answer first. There's nothing called percentage. You don't have to take 5%, 2%, 10%, nothing like that. But a sample should be such that it can vary from any number to any number. It should not be so small that you lose all the information. It should not be so large that you cannot handle it. So you have to decide yourself what is your objective, what exactly you are studying. So try to keep it a very humble 100 or 150, maybe is good enough, or 200. It depends how much your time is left with you. If you have just 1.5 years left, I think collecting even 200 sample is very good. You can do it. But justifying it is the most important. Why you have selected this sample? Why this stratification? What kind of stratas did you do? And where are you selecting more? The sample cannot be equally 4% here and all through 4%. No, you have to have a sample which is which is stratified random sampling, where you can select, justifying that, okay, this area has got more farmers, so I'm taking more from here. This area has less farmers, so less. Some kind of logic you have to apply. So then you have that as a stratified random sampling, or you want to take some other criteria, you are most welcome. You can do that. But sample size should not be very, very huge. But if you have time, you have at least 6 months of field survey. If you have that much time, you can go ahead. You can take more. You can take 500, 600. It's up to you. You have to see. You have to decide. There is no hard and fast rule that how much you have to take. But of course, if you're taking a large sample, it should be minimum 100 to 200. That of course should be there. And second question was, you're talking about, sorry, I lost the second question. It was something on the farmers. Can you repeat your second question, please?
Hello, ma'am. Second question is, like, my study is an impact analysis, ma'am, on farmers.
Yeah.
So I know the population size of experimental group of the farmers.
Yeah.
So I don't have the population size of the control group.
Doesn't matter. You can easily exploit that expected farmer size that you have from your thing, and you
okay.
You just enhance that to suit the population. That you can do. You have chi-square test. You have so many other tools through which you can find out what is the expected number that you should be looking for. You have an observed number. You will have in chi-square. You need only those two, observed and expected. So you fit in there and you find out what should be approximate. Give a rationale, give a method. Nobody will challenge your selection.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. So I just wanted to know that means if I choose a quantitative research methodology, and according to that my topic is also, then shall मतलब मैंने अगर क्वालिटेटिव डाटा अगर यूज करना है मुझे उसके साथ, so how should I triangulate that thing? So with the quantitative data, I would like to use some qualitative data.
Yes,
So
you can do that. You can do that. आप टॉपिक कुछ किस पे करना चाहते हैं? कौन सी टॉपिक पे? एक टॉपिक दीजिए मुझे.
जैसे कि मेरा टॉपिक है daily lives and livelihood of gone tribal women farmers. So it is mostly my qualitative studies.
The voice is breaking.
Daily lives.
Daily lives?
Daily lives and livelihood of gone tribal women farmers.
Okay.
So this is my topic, and I'm doing qualitative study. But if I want to do this study quantitatively and want to add some qualitative data. So how to triangulate that?
Yeah, you can take ethnographic, like I told you. When you're talking of daily lives and livelihood, that itself you can do a timeshare kind of experiment that I was talking about. You observe 10 women, spend 10 whole days with them. One day, one woman. Just do nothing else. Note what she's doing, how she's doing, what is her daily life like. That is your qualitative analysis. And you come back from the field and you jot down. So many hours she has spent on this, so many hours. You make a timeshare kind of series, which Ministry of Women and Child had also started. Dhar Chakravarti had suggested this first. And it became a very big hit because we could see what is the contribution of the women to the lives and livelihood, not for herself, but her family also. So, that way you can portray the woman's busy picture that she's doing. Now you want to make a quantitative assessment. Now, in a quantitative assessment, if you're taking a particular area, then you select some women, then you go for a questionnaire. And according to these data that you got through qualitative analysis, you frame some questions. Do you do this? Do you do that? How much time you spent on this? Then you can do that quickly, and you can take maybe 100 women of that area or 150 women depending on the time that you have. And then you do an assessment of that. That data is separate. This is a qualitative analysis. You don't have to triangulate here. In qualitative, in this particular case, you don't have to triangulate. But sometimes you might have to triangulate even qualitative research. But here you have an entire qualitative focus group discussions, your observations, your respondents' perceptions, just watching them. You are collecting information, what time she's waking up, what time she goes for, the cows need to be looked into, the buffaloes have to be looked. So, what kind of work she's doing. You divide the entire day into work. And there should be some time for her entertainment. What does she do for entertaining herself? Does she watch TV? Does she listen to the radio? What does she do? So some time for entertainment. So that is a separate thing. Now, once you have the quantitative data in front of you, your qualitative and quantitative should be matching with each other. That is your main crux, right? So that will prove your point, whatever your hypothesis is.
Thank
All right.
you.
Any other question? I don't know how many of you are there, 33 participants. Anybody from these 33 participants? Anybody else who wants to ask anything else related with this or not related with this? That's also okay. So if you ever have any difficulty, you can always contact me. My email is on the front page, front slot. You can ask me questions. I will not get irritated. I will explain you if I can. And I really love to see, the youngsters coming properly read, not giving any kind of methodology to ICSSR. It really cuts a very sorry figure, because you are PhD scholars, postdoctoral scholars, or maybe doing some project. You should, at this stage, you should be able to, master your, at least research methodology aspect. We don't want to become statisticians. We don't have to know principal component analysis. Nowadays, everything is being done on the computer. But at least selection of your indicators, your sample size, your biasness of scale is there or not, your how does even standardization is done through the computer now. Nothing is done manually. But unless you understand how it is done, unless you are convinced that there is something called biasness of scale, you cannot ask the computer that, okay, you do it. If you don't know, you cannot. You see, garbage in, garbage out. There's a saying in computer science. If you tell him, okay, calculate this for me, find out the correlation between the moon's rising and the water, the water supply of the municipality. No, this is ridiculous. You are selecting such a ridiculous correlation. So if you ask computer will do it. It's a robot. It will do it. But you have to select it from your own subject. Base your rational theory on your own subject. Don't forget your main subject, your basic subject. You are an expert in that. So that subject, and you borrow some techniques from other subjects. So there's no harm in that, right? Anything else? No more questions? No more doubts? So I expect you people, next time you apply in ICSSR, I don't know if I bump into you, but I hope you will give a rationale. That is my main problem is that you people don't have a rationale. So select with a proper rationale, right? All the best to you. Good luck. And over to you, Rijesh.
Thank you, ma'am. It was very informative, and basic is always very important. One should have an understanding of why one is doing a certain technique before applying that. So it was wonderful.
Yeah, it's very simple technique, but nobody bothers about it. That's why I told Professor Murthy, let me handle this today, because he knows also that he's also in the panels, and we keep crying over each other's shoulder how, methodology is bad. So I'm so happy that ISID has taken up this research methodology orientation program or whatever training program. This should be done more often, I think. We should do it.
I think you can also, if you want, you can send me the references that you have.
Okay, but I just said it.
If you want to share with the participant, I can.
I will have to find out. I'll find out and I'll send it to you by email. Then you can circulate it. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so I can go now.
You can.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Hello. So how's the class going? Fine.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Nice, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're finding it interesting.
Going well.
We have like so many people are missing. I don't know what happened to them. Are you in touch with each other in WhatsApp or no?
This is the backlog of the online course. If we would have the offline, maybe we know each other. We will get chance to know about each other.
Planned it as an offline course only, but because of COVID and all, we have to. Probably here. And also the feedback form that you have given it up. Is there any difficulty in that? Every session we have to give feedback. This has to be given to the ICSSR every day. So at the end of the program, I have to give a report to ICSSR. So as part of that, it is very important. So kindly do that.
Sir, there was yesterday. There was one point like PPT presentation, or that question was there, but sir hasn't present any PPT. But he gave good presentation. So he conduct good session. So I was little confused that where should I click, 1 or 4? That was my confusion.
Why 4? Why not 9?
So that was like
Same concern. Yes, sir, same as there was no PPT by two of the resource person, and I was in kind of a confusion. How do I rate them on that part?
And while submitting, it was not accepting without click in on any. There was no option.
There is no need to have a feedback. Only I think Professor Through presentation was without feedback.
Yes, sir. Only one.
That is okay. That is fine. Because, you can give any number. That there is no issue. Because we will not be considering that. Because, yes. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Otherwise, that form is. So tomorrow we will be having 3 lectures. One is Professor Surya Narayanan. He will also be discussing about statistical. He's a statistician, so that will be very useful. Have that. Then we have Sarvesa Sahu. He's a sociology professor. We will also talk about some philosophical aspects. I think that generally people don't go through it like philosophical, methodological aspects of research. I think that is also very important. One should understand these issues rather than doing some methods and all. Then Professor Surendra Jhotka, today only he gave me the title. He will be speaking on sociological imaginations. He's a professor of sociology, so that will be. You keep on attending regularly and having attendance also. It's nice that the certificate also it mainly depends upon your attendance. Attendance and feedback. So that is the guidelines which is given by SSR, so we have to follow that. So you kindly participate. I think some lectures you may not be like it may not be in your area, but you can still have some. This is a multidisciplinary kind of course. Economics, people are there, so sociology, management, and also. So anybody wish to have? Anybody wish to say something?
So guys, unmute yourself.
Really?
Yeah, he's speaking.
Where is speaking? Where is?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, actually, I want to ask about the today's attendance.
You are already present, so you have been.
Okay, sir.
Yes, Suhail is speaking.
Suhail is speaking. Where is Suhail? Huh?
No, some issue with his.
But is not audible.
You're not audible.
It's okay. When that's joined. He's requesting for the other session.
Okay, then we.
Hello.
Yeah, Suhail. Speak.
Actually, I was saying that we need one special, lecture on this unit level data. Close it, close. Yes, sir. Actually, there was one more laptop which was making noise. Sir, actually, I was saying that we just need one special, kind of lecture on this unit level data because we are not having much unit level data.
Unit level data, yeah.
Yes, sir. Because right now we are from the economics background and we are having no much need of this unit level data, how to extract data from NSSO reports particularly this unit level data, sir.
What is your work? Like you are doing on what?
Sir, actually, I am working on small scale industries, but
small scale industries.
Yes, sir.
We have one lecture on large scale database that is by Dr. Ajit Jha. We will be touching upon that unit level data and all, but I think mainly he will talk about NSSO and economic census. But the procedure is like industry that is different, but the procedure to extract the data is almost similar. So we will have, there are data available for say ASI and all. It is currently available from the government department, government website, but you all need to know how to extract it to the prepared format. So that is what we will be having a discussion with Varghese also is there. Mr. Varghese, he will be having 2 lectures on SPSS. So there, I think he will give you this example of how to extract. I think he will do that on SPSS. So that will be useful.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other query? Anybody from this group know each other before? No.
I know, sir. Gangadhar.
Oh.
Gangadhar is here.
That's nice. So have a nice evening and enjoy.
Sir, in this schedule, there is no any feminist research methodology. So if anybody is interested other than me, you can add, or otherwise it's okay.
Yeah, we will see.
Yeah.
Okay, then we will meet tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.